At this time, I would like to call the regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting to order. Let the record reflect it is Thursday, September 17th, 2020 at 7 p.m. This is Chairman Garrett Gray speaking. Before we get started, I would ask that anyone joining us remotely to please mute your phones. Thank you. For those wishing to follow along with the PowerPoint, you are encouraged to access the meeting through the Tinley Park television on YouTube. It is my understanding that all members and staff present have checked in on the conference line, and we can begin our meeting. Please note, throughout the meeting, we expect to have other individuals joining us via phone call pertaining to specific agenda items. Thank you in advance for your patience and cooperation throughout tonight's Plan Commission meeting, which is convening remotely via conference call. This open meeting of the Village of Tinley Park is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07, issued on March 16, 2020, which suspends the Open Meetings Act provisions relating to the in-person attendance by members of a public body. The Open Meetings Act, OMA, requires public bodies to allow for public comment. Therefore, this meeting will include public comment via the established protocol. Even if members of the public do not provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comment, and those persons are not required to identify themselves. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by web or audio conference. We're all getting used to working and meeting remotely, so I do not feel it necessary to go over the protocols again. Please just remember to wait until I address you, and please keep your phones muted, and also when you are allowed to speak, please identify yourself. Thank you. At this time, I will ask the Commission Secretary to please take the roll call.
Engel,
Present.
Manny,
Here.
Gatto, West, Gaskell,
Present.
Aitchison,
Here.
Vic,
Here.
Chairman Gray.
Here. Okay. Staff, this is Chairman Gray. Staff, are there any communications for the Commission?
No.
Okay. This is Chairman Gray. Let us now begin with the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 3rd, 2020 meeting?
This is Commissioner Engel, so moved.
This Commissioner Vick has seconded that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Engel, seconded by Commissioner Vick. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is carried. The first item on our agenda this evening is a public hearing to consider recommending that the Village Board grant Petros Dramonis Pete's Fresh Market on behalf of 163rd and Harlem LLC property owner a special use for a substantial deviation of the Park Place planned unit development 89-0-048 for a phased development location at 16300 South Harlem Avenue, Tinley Park. The granting of this request and site approval will allow for the use of the former Kmart structure as a warehouse/distribution center in Phase 1. Phase 2 shall include the construction of a new grocery store, Pete's Fresh Market, associated retail, approximately 119,000 square feet, and renovation of the former Kmart store for an additional 38,000 square feet retail as Phase 2. May I have a motion to open the public hearing at this time?
Commissioner Gaskell, I make the motion.
Do I hear a second?
This Commissioner Vick has seconded that motion.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Vick. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is carried. I want to let you know I did receive confirmation of the public notice for this public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak after staff's presentation. So staff, please proceed with your presentation.
Yes, this is Paula Warwick, Village Planning Manager. First of all, is anyone having trouble with streaming? Because if it's just me, that's fine, but I can't seem to get it up. Anybody watching it? Dan, are you watching it?
I'm watching it, and it seems to be working.
It is?
Live.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, it's only got about a
Pardon?
2-second lag.
I see it, Paula, yeah.
Okay, it's just me. All right, so Dan, are you advancing the slides? I'll just, you know the project well enough, just go ahead and advance them for me.
Yeah,
Before we begin tonight, though, I want to make sure, before I present my presentation, I want to make sure that the minutes reflect that the staff report has been distributed to all the commission members, been distributed to the applicant, and it's been posted on our website. The staff report will be attached to the minutes once they are completed, and they'll be made a part of the meeting record. So let's begin. We did have a workshop on this 2 weeks ago. I understand that there is a resident or a couple residents in the audience, so I'll go through it a little more thoroughly because they may not have seen the workshop. But the issue before you this evening is the granting of a special use for substantial deviation to the Park Place planned unit development located at 16300 South Harlem Avenue. What we'll be looking at this evening is a phased project with phase one constituting the redevelopment and reuse, not really redevelopment because they're not proposing any exterior improvements, but the reuse of the former Kmart building for warehouse distribution use. And that'll be part of phase one. You'll also be looking at the overall site plan and approval of the concept site plan for the entire development that will include phase two, development of a Pete's Fresh Market grocery store and associated retailer next to that of 43,000 square feet. And then an additional 38,000 square feet of retail space that'll wrap around the northeast corner of the former Kmart department store. So if you want to advance probably to the history slide, Dan.
Okay.
This Park Place PUD was approved in 1989. It actually was approved originally with a 9-hole golf course. I understand that the residents in the audience actually were aware of that and had hoped to see a 9-hole golf course. But as we all know, that didn't develop in that way. It was going to be a mixed-use development of retail, entertainment, 9-hole golf course, and residential. In 1993, the PUD was amended to allow for the construction of the Aldi store. There had already been a Pace warehouse store, which is kind of like a membership buyers club, like Sam's Club, built just to the north of that, and then Sam's Club moved into that. 2 years later is when the PUD was amended to provide for the Kmart store, and at that time, the idea of the golf course was eliminated. Currently, right now, there is also stormwater management that is south of Kmart, and landscaping, and berms, and perimeter fencing all existed as part of that development of the Kmart store. As we move on talking about the actual parcels and the phasing, the slides in front of you show that the main parcel, there's actually 4 parcels under ownership by Pete's Market. Only 2 of them are involved in the development, and the other 2 are related to stormwater management. But parcel 1 is rather large, wraps around the former Aldi building, and then parcel 2 is that small vacant grass area just south of Aldi. Regarding the phasing, and I want to progress to the schedule, just so you understand how this project will proceed. The first phase, as I mentioned, is going to be the reuse of the Kmart building. And then we'll get plans submitted. I know they're working on them now. We're hoping to get those plans submitted by November for the grocery store. We have tentatively scheduled some workshop and public hearing meetings for that development, phase 2, in January and February. They hope to get to the board for approval in March. and then submit for the building permit in April 21. All this with the hope of getting the ground broken by June 2021, and then the plan is to have Pete's Fresh Market occupied by September 1st, 2022. The zoning in the area, this property, as I mentioned, is part of the Park Place PUD. It has an underlying zoning district of B3, which is our general and most intense commercial uses. To the north is also B3. To the east is the Bricksmore Shopping Plaza, and we just had a whole development of that, which will see the redevelopment of that plaza. And that was also a phased project. That has an underlying zoning district of B2. South of that is some medical uses, and that is a zoning of B4. West, we have residential. We have attached single family as an R6 zoning. And then south, we have some unincorporated property managed by the Park District for open space and passive recreational uses. So again, tonight we're looking at an overall conceptual site plan approval for the special use. As phase one, we're approving the special use for warehouse distribution, and then phase two will come later that will handle the development of the property. Let's move on to discussion of the substantial deviation. Warehouses are typically zoned as permitted uses in the M1 general manufacturing and MU mixed use Devon Drive districts. They are not typically permitted as a use in a B3 district, and that's why the review as part of the phase one and phase two is looking at this warehouse use as an accessory use to the grocery store. All the approvals and conditions have been with the understanding that the warehouse distribution use will only function subordinate to the principal and primary use of the property as a grocery store. The grocery store would cease to exist. The warehouse distribution facility would also have to cease to exist. When considering anything as a special use, and that's what the substantial deviation constitutes a special use in this district, we necessarily have to kind of think through all the unique aspects of that special use. The special use process provides the Commission the opportunity to consider those unique impacts with the goal of making sure we have no negative impacts on the surrounding properties. So I've mentioned several issues that we're going to go over, including the traffic volume and pattern, screening of the uses, hours of operation, noise, overnight storage of delivery vehicles, and outdoor storage. Those are just some of the considerations that we're going to go through this evening. Let's start with the traffic volume and the pattern. Again, with this phase one, we're only dealing with delivery vehicles that will be going to the 5 loading docks at the south side of the Kmart building. This figure shows you how they will enter the property and going in a counterclockwise manner around the Kmart property. This is only going to be the pattern in phase one. Obviously, once the entire property is developed, we don't want trucks running in front of the old Kmart store. We want to keep the delivery vehicles separate from any customer vehicles and pedestrian use. So when they come back with phase two, there'll be a new traffic study required as part of that approval, and they will provide a new plan. As I mentioned, right now we have 5 loading docks behind the Kmart. With phase two, they plan on constructing 5 additional docks, again in the same area at the south side of the property. They anticipate 15 trips per day, which is commensurate with the Sam's Club volume as experienced now. As our open item that we talked about at the workshop, we discussed the impact of the delivery schedule and the routing. The Commission did not express any concern regarding this. Their only concern was expressed for phase two, and it was noted that a traffic study would be required in phase two to make sure that we're limiting any impact on the adjacent property owners to the west. Let's move on to the screening of the dock area. Again, the location is at the back, and one of the fortunate things about the reuse of this building is a lot of the screening exists, and the landscaping had an opportunity to mature. There's a berm, a fairly high berm to the south of there. Basically, when you're heading north in Harlem, it's very difficult to see anything behind the Kmart store. There's also an existing solid wood fence that surrounds that runs along the west side of the property line, and it includes landscaping on both sides of the fence. I believe you have a couple, if you want to advance through the pictures there, you'll see there's a couple pictures of how the views are to the site. One of the things I noticed upon visiting the site is that some of the street trees are gone along Harlem Avenue. So we are recommending that the street trees be replaced prior to occupancy of the Kmart building with phase one. And they've agreed to do this. So we'll probably see some plantings this fall. The open item number 2, as it's listed there, mentions that the commission recognized the merits of the existing berm and the landscaping, but felt that the parkway trees could be made a condition of their approval. And that's the way we've written the recommended motions for this evening. Regarding the screening of the dock area, I think, again, I'm not able to see the plan that you have set up there or the graphic, but it's important to know that the nearest home to that dock is over 500 feet away. And again, the building, it's wrapped around the back or the south side of the Kmart building. So we're fortunate in that we have no adjacent residential uses right next to the docking area. So let's discuss next the hours of operation. They are requesting that they operate between the hours of 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. That coincides with their operations right now and how they use their loading. They load their trailers up and have them docked at the dock, and then in the morning, the trucks come in and take them away. Our ordinance, we have 2 ordinances that relate to hours of operation and any kind of docking or refrigerated trucks. And they do regulate hours between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. They do limit them. However, those are only for docks and trucks that are within 300 feet of any residential use. And in this case, we are over 500 feet. So those ordinances do not apply. There was also some questions at the workshop about refrigerator trucks, and the representative from Pete's Fresh Market mentioned that they do not idle their trucks and they do not leave the refrigerated trucks running while they're at the dock. So open item number 3 was regarding these hours of hours of operation, and because they are beyond the 300 feet limits, they are not subject to those ordinances. The commission didn't express any concern about it. However, it was noted that it will become an issue and will need to be addressed in phase 2 when 5 additional docks will be constructed and there will be homes within that 300 feet. Again, as I mentioned to the resident that's in the audience this evening, Pete did say that the docks for the grocery store will be interior to the building and all the loading will happen in an enclosed area. But that will be discussed as we move on to phase 2 next year. The next slide is regarding noise. We do have ordinance and performance standards related to this. There are certain decibel levels that are limited, that are provided. And since we are not operating right now, we can't enforce those, but obviously we will enforce those ordinances related to decibel levels between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Next issue was the open storage of delivery vehicles. And we do have an ordinance regarding this, and that after a certain size limit, 1.5 tons, we limit the outdoor storage of vehicles even used for delivery purposes. Obviously, these semi-trucks for Pete's are much greater than that, much heavier than that. But they are requesting that they can dock 5 trucks overnight, but they would dock them at the dock, which is screened behind the Kmart store. So this would have to be an exception of the approval this evening. The commission did discuss this at the workshop, and they did not have a concern about this, understanding that the location is shielded by the landscaping that exists there on the berm to the south and the building on the north side. So let's move on to outdoor storage. Outdoor storage is prohibited in this district, and in discussions with Pete, they are not going to have any outdoor storage. Therefore, we'll just make that a condition of the approval this evening. The next item is actually the approval of the overall special use for the warehouse use as a substantial deviation of the Park Place PUD. And again, I just want to explain how the zoning works for that. A PUD does allow the commission to consider uses that are not permitted necessarily in that district. So as I mentioned, warehouse uses are typically not permitted in a B3 district. Because this is in a PUD, the Planning Commission can review this and find that that they have reviewed the project and limited any possible negative impact from the approval of that use. One of the things that we wanted to make clear, and it's sort of a thread throughout the workshop as well as the public hearing, that we want to make sure that the warehouse distribution is only ancillary to the grocery store. Now, it will open before the grocery store gets up, but we are tying the approval of this substantial deviation to the grocery store opening no later than September 1st, 2022. So the commission agreed with staff's recommendation on that, and that the warehouse distribution will need to be accessory and will be prohibited to operate independent of the grocery store. That takes care of open item number 7. Now let's move on to the concept site plan. And again, this is a review of the overall site plan and concept. So it moves on to phase 2. And as the plan is laid out there, you'll see on the right-hand side, the yellow area is the 138,000 square foot for warehouse. The purple is the retail that'll wrap around that northeast corner of the existing Kmart building. On the west side there, you have a 76,000 grocery store, and then next door to them to the north is 43,000 square feet of retail use. That all being constructed as part of phase 2. The next slide, I guess I sort of just inserted it in. One of the things we discussed last time is that there's an existing pylon sign. Dan, do you have that picture up?
Yeah.
Okay. We had asked the applicant to take that sign down with phase 1 because we didn't think they'd be using that, and it is outside of code allowances because of its height. I think it's 22 feet in height. And also our current ordinance requires that the width of the ground mount sign remain the same and that you don't have like a top that's wider like it is there. So they had agreed to do that, but then they did send out a contractor to check out the sign that exists there and found that, the electrical is in place, and they believe that they can hopefully reuse components of that base. They'll reskin it, to look nicer and, be consistent with the architecture and building materials of the buildings. But they would like to retain that until they get through the phase 2 approvals, because they'll be requesting a variance on the height, similar to what we just approved for Brixmore. This area does have ground-mounted signs that exceed the 10-foot limit. So in speaking with them and knowing that there is some merit to reuse of that sign, staff is supportive of retaining it. And if the commission isn't agreeable to that, I took that out as a condition of your approval for the special use. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see some of the issues that staff has pointed out that's a concern. We want to make sure the parking field is probably the biggest area that they changed. Right now, those parking aisles run in a north-south direction, and they are proposing have them run in the east-west direction, which makes sense because they will be supporting primarily the grocery store. But that south row of parking, we want to make sure that there's a landscape buffer along there because we don't want to have vehicles backing out into that main aisle of traffic. We also want to make sure that we have a 6-foot public sidewalk extending along Oak Park Avenue heading south. It really doesn't connect to anything right now, but our policy throughout the village has been to build those sidewalks when we have an opportunity. And then similar to the plaza across the street, did I say the wrong street?
You said Oak Park, it should be Harlem.
Oh, Harlem, thanks for catching that, Barb. Harlem Avenue, correct. And then similar to Brixmore across the street, we have sidewalks extending from that public walk on Harlem and coming into the center. And then we're recommending crosswalks wherever we have pedestrian crossing vehicle traffic. So this site plan is just in the concept stage, but those are the primary things that we expressed concern about. So open item 8 was just making sure that we were all in agreement with the concept, and we did discuss, we originally had talked about putting that sidewalk in now, but in speaking with the contractor, he is not going to have any concrete guys out on site. That all will go with phase 2. And he really made a good point that, yes, we do want the sidewalk there, and when it will become important is once we have customers coming to the site. Right now, nobody's coming to the site except the trucks. So we requested if we can defer that to phase 2. Next issue is the maintenance of the site, and as we discussed at the workshop, it's important that the site be maintained well, that the grass is cut, litter is picked up, the site look as clean as it can. You know, we've been requiring this of the past owner and the current owner through our property maintenance division, and my recommendation is that we just continue to have our code enforcement staff stay on top of that area to make sure it's kept clean. They really have the appropriate protocols and mechanisms to enforce that. So that was the open item number 9, and commission concurred with staff's recommendation just to have the code enforcement staff take care of that. So let's look at just a summary. I'm not going to go through them all. I think it's important just to note that we will only have one exception, and that's the overnight storage of the 5 vehicles. And then we have several conditions for approval, including the planting of the landscape trees and making sure that the use is conditioned upon the grocery store being open by September 1, 2022, and the prohibition of outdoor storage. And that concludes my report, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Paul, for your presentation. This is Chairman Gray. At this time, I'll ask if the applicant is here and if they have anything to add.
I don't know if they're on
This is
the line.
Eugene Chinkovich. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Eugene. Is anybody else going to be speaking tonight?
I'm attending, and our architect from Canberra Theodore is also, John Bradshaw is on the line.
Okay. Well, I'm going to, if you guys are going to speak tonight, I will bring you in right now. So if you can reply to the following, both of you, John and Eugene, and if anybody else with your team is going to speak. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, and that's you, Eugene. What about John? Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me? I agree. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Then go ahead and add your 2 cents, Eugene and John.
This is Eugene. Really not adding any more to the presentation. Paul did a very thorough job in explaining our phase 1 and phase 2. The only thing I can elaborate on is phase 2 is being currently worked on, and the site development plan will be tweaked, for lack of better terms. We will be presenting that in the near future. Paul and I have been in direct contact with a lot of the issues, and I foresee no hiccups in abiding to the village's request.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. John, do you want to speak at this time?
No, but I'm open for any questions you may have.
Okay, excellent. This is Chairman Gray. Commission, I'm going to ask each of you if you have any comments or discussion on this matter at this time. We will begin with Commissioner Engel.
I have no comment.
Okay. Commissioner Manny.
No comments from me.
Commissioner Aitchison.
No comments at this time?
Okay, Commissioner Vick.
My only thing at this point would be, and I know I missed it in the presentation from Paula there, is it the proposed grocery store, when that opens, is that going to have the interior loading and unloading?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. All right. Then I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell.
Nothing from me at this time.
Okay. This is Chairman Gray. I do have a few comments. Starting with, to piggyback on what Commissioner Vick mentioned about the interior warehouse, that is also going to be proposed to have, and that's phase 2, but hours of operation from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. But I understand it isn't inside, and so that will have a lower issue in terms of sound because it's inside. The other thing I just would like
Wait,
to
I think
mention.
I'm confused. Are you asking
Yeah, we need to
about
clarify.
phase- Yeah, it's confusing what you said, Garrett. It is
Sure.
5 a.m. to 5 p.m. for phase 1. We're not talking about phase 2 hours now at all.
Okay, and so, yeah, 'cause in the staff report, what I understood is that will be revisited if there is a need.
Correct.
Okay. The other things that came up in the staff presentation, in terms of repurposing the sign, I'm okay with that. Sounds like it's all set up for a new sign with the electrical, so if you can repurpose it, that's fine. Groundbreaking, if everything gets approved, would be in 9 months, so why take it down just to put something up? So I think that's good to repurpose it. I have no issues with putting the concrete sidewalk in phase 2. I think that staff made a good argument in terms of why to put it in phase 2. And then last, just to reiterate, I do, and I know the staff or the commission, we concur with staff on the condition that, all this is contingent on having a grocery store, by September 2022. So, but other than that, I don't have any other comments. So at this time, I would like to ask if anyone is present from the public that is wishing to comment on this item.
We make sure, so you're saying.
It-
Hold on.
hold on.
You're
So-
gonna have to be sworn in. She'll
Yeah,
swear you
and if you
in.
can go to the microphone, because that'll help them be able to hear
Come
you.
up to the podium.
Okay.
And could you please identify yourself, both of you?
Lynn Romanengi.
James Roman Engie.
They signed in.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Lynn and James Romanengi.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys, do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Okay,
Our
this
biggest,
time, go ahead and make your comments.
our biggest concern is noise. Because when the Kmart was behind there, the trucks would idle in the winter. They'd idle constantly. The noise was unbelievable.
Okay, wait a minute.
Okay.
Make sure you're talking to
I'm sorry. Our biggest concern
Is
is,
that better, Paula?
I have her say something. Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like we're getting a lot of interference on the phone call.
Have everybody mute their phone?
That's better.
okay,
good now.
can you hear me now?
Can you hear her now?
Can you hear me now? Is this on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Our biggest concern is noise. When Kmart was behind there, the trucks would be there, all day and all night, and they would idle in the winter, idle continuously for sometimes an hour or more, which was incredibly noisy. And you're saying now that that is not going to be allowed, that the trucks are not going to be allowed to idle. And second of all, that your hours are going to be from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it will not be in the middle of the night or, in the evening. That would help tremendously.
Yep, and that's what's getting approved here, as well as what they presented they would do. So if they were idling or something, I think they've been pretty open. They would make sure that wasn't happening.
So that's not
Okay.
going to happen. That's what we're
Yeah.
being told.
All right, what about the 43,000 square foot retail store? What about deliveries to that place?
That's what our concern is too, because
Our house is right
So, yeah,
right
so
behind there.
Right now, our municipal ordinance limits the deliveries. Basically, they'd have to happen between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Okay,
If they wanted to change that, and it has so Sam's Club has 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. that we've allowed them deliveries. I assume Pete's will probably want a little earlier than 10, I won't speak for them, but they'll have to come back as part of phase 2 and ask for that.
Okay.
Because they don't have that retail space, they obviously don't know what their needs are. If they wanted something else, they'd
we're also
have it.
concerned about the hours of the store. Kmart was open 24 hours, which meant it was horrible when they were there, because the kids would be blasting music back there in the winter. They'd
parked
literally
cars.
be doing donuts we were calling the cops. We were on first name basis with the cops constantly. I mean, if you're going to take into consideration that you were building this right, in front of us, that the hours that you cannot have 24-hour stores,
Yeah.
retail,
I can, either Paula or if the Pete's people want to answer what the hours of operation are on this.
Sure. This is Eugene, and our hours of operation for the one second.
Somebody's breathing heavy.
I was gonna say, I'm not aware of a Pete's that's 24 hours.
Okay.
Pete's is not 24 hours?
Do you have the hours for Pete's grocery store?
Correct. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So our hours of operation are from 7 to 10 p.m. for the
Okay.
store, operation for people to come and buy goods. The delivery hours are from about 6:37 a.m. and shut down at 5 p.m.
Okay.
All right. What about the construction noise that, I know these buildings aren't going to go up, without any noise being made with tractors
Oh,
and
gee, man.
all kinds of
you know, bulldozers and,
you
you
name
know,
it, it's
that's.
gonna be there.
Yeah,
I
and
mean-
you know, regardless of who.
They should,
someone
you
did
know,
something,
they
we
should
do
soundproof our back windows. That would solve the problem. If you would soundproof our back, you know, 2 windows there, that would make a huge difference. I don't know, that's probably what, $1,500 or something each window. Pete
Well,
should consider
so
doing
we do
that.
have construction hours as well, that.
I
limit.
understand that. I've spent 43 years in the construction trade,
But
so.
I'm thinking they should, you know, consider that because we are going to be complaining a lot because, like I said, we were supposed to have a golf course behind there. And then they changed it to a 24-hour Kmart, which really was difficult for years and years until that was gone. And it's been fine with the, you know, the parking lot behind there. But in the winter, you still get kids, you know, doing wheelies and that kind of thing back there. So they should also maybe consider a couple of bumps to prevent kids from doing that, you know, in their parking lot when it's empty at night, that,
Speed bumps.
you know, speed bumps maybe to prevent kids from doing, because they've, you know, were doing that with, before the parking lot, you know, they were doing that when Kmart was there. And
Can I interject, please? So this is Eugene. I want you to understand that our warehouse is proprietary to Pete's Market. Its sole purpose is to feed the Pete's Market stores. And with that said, so we have complete control of that building and our Pete's Market grocery store. And though that they're separate buildings, homogeneously we work together. As far as the control of people doing donuts or loud music or anything else, I'm always open to talk with the village police department and sign an agreement with them so that they have control in policing our site, and we'll work out the parameters, but they'll be able to control the site. We're talking not only like violations of parking, but being in the fire lane, and also, you know, contributing to the problem that you have had in the past to try to mitigate those issues.
And from a site plan perspective, if you kind of, and it is still concept, but them flipping the parking
Would
the other
help.
direction.
If you put the
and-
buildings against Harlem Avenue and leave the parking towards us, that would be a major improvement for us.
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's, I think, pretty hard to do that with large commercial retail
Right.
and grocery stores now. You know, we like buildings near the front too, but that's just not very practical with most grocery stores. But what I was getting at is they're
I think
adding
a
more.
plus here, a plus everybody needs to look at with the future development of the Pete's and the retail, we're condensing this large parcel of asphalt, and we're densifying it with building. And our operations, not only for the warehouse, but for the market, when that happens, you really start to close down that opportunity for people to just run rapid.
Right.
And there's more landscaping being added, so you can kind of see some of the islands being added where, you know, right now there's pretty large expanses of asphalt out there. Here, what he's getting at is you're not only getting a building, there'll be some landscape improvement.
And hopefully then maybe sound will be dampened because you'll have the buildings, you know, for the.
Yeah, and not that somebody can't do donuts.
Right, but
We're
that's
not
why I'm
gonna be
thinking
able
they
to-
might want to consider a couple speed bumps, because it's frightening for that they're going to hurt themselves one day too. The retail space that's, you know, the other 2 retail space, does Pete's Market own that and they're going to rent it, or who does that belong to? You know, the blue and the purple, the retail space on the side of the
43,000
grocery,
square foot,
and then the
38.
pink.
Yes, they'll be leasing those out.
And that's owned by Pete's Market. Our
Yes.
major concern is that we do not get another 24-hour, you know, type of business in there. Because that's where a lot of the problems come in with noise and everything when you're trying to sleep. And people are, you know, especially at that time of night, you get some really strange people out there if they're shopping. So, you know, they really have to be aware of the fact that they should not have another 24-hour type of store
Business.
business there.
I just
Your point
encourage
is-
you, as we move on to phase 2, that you stay in touch. You'll be part of just like you received a notice on this, you'll receive a notice on that.
Okay,
But those retail spaces are not subject of the public hearing tonight.
okay, all right, we'll come back then, and, because, when they were gonna put the Kmart in, nobody ever sent us anything. We didn't know that until they started digging the ground up, and we're like, what the heck's going on? So, we definitely wanna put our
Okay.
2 cents in.
Right,
since
thank you.
We are the closest.
And with knowing you guys are interested in stuff, we can't, once they finalize plans, we can reach out to you and make sure you have the link.
Okay, so you have our,
Phone numbers? Yeah.
oh, here.
Right here. There's the pen right here.
Okay.
And if you put your emails on there too, we can.
Okay.
Once it gets closer, we can always reach out.
And we will have our neighbors be coming too,
But you'll
because
get-
there's, all, that whole line behind us is gonna be affected by this.
Yeah, but you'll get the same letter as you did on this one.
Okay.
And that one, but if you guys, before a public meeting, wanna look at the plans and stuff, that's usually a little bit easier sometimes if you guys are trying to understand it. So feel free to contact us.
SBCglobal.net, right?
Cause that
Barb,
is,
you might want to tell them about the website that they can monitor as well.
Yeah. On our website, tinleypark.org, if you go on there, all this information is on there.
Okay.
It's under the packet.
Yeah.
Under-
I thought it was on the.
Yeah, it's on that
It's on our
letter we got,
paperwork that we
okay.
received.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
On plan commission.
because those dates may change, those aren't set in stone, that's just kind of what they're aiming
Yeah.
for and we're looking for right now, so you can keep an eye on that stuff, but. I'll say that one of our biggest concerns is obviously, we know you guys are there and there's residential there, so that's, since day one, that's.
Because
why
I know
it's
at the other end of our
the way it
block,
is.
when they built, they had to move air conditioning units back because they actually took them to court, I believe.
Oh,
And to have that, because you
They
cannot.
relocated the rooftop
The
units on some of
rooftop
the
units,
buildings.
because it's like, that's what people use for torture, is those sounds that it's just constant like that. And, so they have to, when Pete's going to build, they have to realize that we are right there and they have to put it towards the front of the building and not.
Getting back to the
right-
construction time, is that gonna be like an 8 to 4:30,
no,
Uh,
7 to 10,
the construction?
yes.
7?
The time is 7 to 10.
And what's the
7 to
planning
10 at night?
construction opening date for this, and then, ground break to finish?
Oh, wait. 7 to 10
7 AM to
For
10
construction, yeah.
PM.
to 10 PM at night?
10 p.m.
Construction.
Yeah.
Good one.
Most
Have
of
you
them
ever
don't do
worked
it
it?
till 10, but,
Yeah.
that's, they can't do anything after 10.
Hello,
What's-
can I speak? This is Eugene.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay, so our construction will go from 7, probably no later than 5 PM.
Okay.
All right.
What's your groundbreaking date, tentative date?
That's on there.
June 2021.
And it'll take you to September 22 to be finished?
2022.
Yeah, 18
Correct.
months.
18 months, good lord.
Yeah,
That-
it's a year and
That's
a half.
fairly standard for our
Okay.
development.
Okay, well, you'll keep us in the loop, and like I said, we
Takes
will
some time.
contact the rest of our neighbors to let them know, so
All
that,
right, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys, again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us beforehand. Sometimes that's, and you're always welcome to come to the public hearings and stuff, and
Okay, and how would
absolutely.
we reach out
But
to you?
sometimes if you have questions,
How
it's
much
easier
paperwork do
to.
we have?
Do we have phone-
Reach out to.
My name is on there, and I
Yeah.
can get you in touch with them.
Okay,
They sent
all
us.
right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, this is Chairman Britt. Thanks to Wynn and James for their comments. At this time, I'll ask the commissioners again, are there any further discussion on this matter? I will just, if there is, just speak up. Okay, hearing nobody, I'm recognizing that there's no further discussion. Since there's no further discussion on this item, may I have a motion to close the public hearing at this time?
This is Commissioner Manning, so moved.
This is Commissioner Aitchison. I second that motion.
Okay, this is Chair Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Manning, seconded by Commissioner Aitchison. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. This is Chairman Gray again. Staff, is there any instructions for Pete's Fresh Market at this time? Or actually, I'm sorry, staff, will you please present the standards for special use for a substantial deviation of the Park Place PUD?
Yes. They are part of the staff report. They will be attached to the minutes, part of the record. I'm not going to go through them one by one. Just in general, those standards are required to make sure that we're taking every opportunity to mitigate every negative aspect. We've recognized that there's existing screening on the property and that we have looked to minimize any negative impact on the adjacent properties. And the fact that the property was previously operating for a large discount store, the utilities and access roads are already existing to support the requested use of the property. We did talk about making sure that this proposed change in land use for warehouse distribution use is considered ancillary and subordinate to the primary use of the building, of the property as a grocery store. And I also would like just to mention the standards for the site plan as well. Most of those are primarily recognizing the fact that this is an existing site that operated with deliveries for a large department store in the past, and that the commission has taken precautions to minimize negative impacts by prohibiting outdoor storage and limiting the overnight storage of the vehicles to the dock area, but noting that as an exception of the approvals this evening. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. Commissioner, is there any discussion on the standards? Speak up if you have something to comment on. Hearing none, we have two motions for this project. May I have the first motion regarding site plan approval?
Commissioner Gaskill, I would like to make a motion to grant the petitioner Petros Dramonis Pete's Fresh Market on behalf of 163rd and Harlem LLC, the property owner, concept site plan approval in accordance with plans as noted in the list of submitted plans within the staff report attached to the Plan Commissioner meeting packet to redevelop the property located at 163rd and Harlem, 16300 Harlem.
Do I hear a...
Commissioner Vick, I second that.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Vick. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. This is Chairman Gray. The motion is carried. At this time, I'm going to ask for a second motion regarding the special use for a substantial deviation. I will ask the person making the motion to read off the PowerPoint screen as it's updated to not have the removal of the non-conforming pole sign.
All right, this is Commissioner Engel. 1 second while I get to that.
You can just read it as you have it, Lucas. Just don't mention the sign.
It's on page 4 of the script at the bottom.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not on my own computer here. Well, give me 1 second.
Or anyone else can sub in too.
motion to recommend that the village board approve a special use for a substantial deviation of the Park Place PUD to allow warehouse/distribution uses as part of phase 1 as an accessory use to a grocery store to be occupied by September 1st, 2022, and thereafter the warehouse/distribution use is prohibited as a use independent from the grocery store use in accordance with plans as noted in the list of submitted plans within the staff report and attached to the Plan Commission meeting packet, and adopt findings related to the standards for special use as outlined in the staff report for phase 1 of property located at 16300 Harlan Avenue, with an exception to allow overnight storage of 5 delivery vehicles parked below the dock, conditioned upon occupancy of the grocery store by September 1st, 2042, prohibition of outdoor storage, and the planting of street trees prior to phase 1 occupancy.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Engel, seconded by Commissioner Manny. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Vic,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Jaskol,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Motion is carried. This is Chairman Gray. Eugene, John, thank you for your time. This item will go to the village board on Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. So write that down and please contact staff on how to attend the meeting. And thanks again for your time tonight and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. Moving on to the second item. The second item on tonight's agenda is to consider granting Daniel Abdo on behalf of Glacier Development Group, the contract purchaser, a site plan amendment to make site and facade changes for a 2-tenant commercial building at 7228 West 191st Street in the B3 PD General Business and Commercial Brookside Marketplace PUD zoning district. This is an approval for site plan only. Therefore, the commission's approval is the final approval. This will not go to village board, and this is not a public hearing. Staff, please proceed with your presentation on the workshop and site plan approval at this time.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, this one's fairly unique. I don't think we get too many of these that are just true site plan approvals. Additionally, instead of doing kind of the workshop and separate approvals on this one, there's some economic development interest in here of us trying to move this along, so we've combined the two. That, of course, if you guys don't feel comfortable, if you guys felt like there's something you needed to see that couldn't maybe be covered by a condition, you always have the ability to continue it, but we're trying to move this along for them and their development side. Additionally, I'll get in, if this looks familiar, it was, the same site was here about a year ago, or almost 2 years ago now, I think, closer to 2 years. So at least half of you guys, I think, have seen the site before. And so the site plans are really still doing a lot of what we accomplished on that last site plan approval, but they're changing it slightly here. So again, this is the old Bank of America, former Bank of America site at 7228 191st Street in Brookside Marketplace, which has Super Target, Kohl's, Best Buy. Most people know the shopping center. The existing site, again, it's vacant. It's the former Bank of America site. It's been vacant since around 2015. Again, this was actually originally designed to be able to be converted to some kind of restaurant or alternative use. So when they did it architecturally, it doesn't scream, this is a bank. There's obviously a ATM drive-through there, bank teller drive-through, but opposite of that, it could, if you took that off, it could basically stand as a restaurant or some other use. So that was the intention kind of from the beginning. Even then, knowing that banks may not be around forever, or kind of a popular use. So even from the very beginning on this site, they looked at alternative uses for this. So interestingly, before you now to move that forward. And then here's another image of the site from the ring road within the shopping center there. The one unique thing kind of about this site compared to anything else in the shopping center is this is really the one building that's oriented towards Harlem Avenue. Everything else really kind of functions towards that ring road where you can access sites, so there's no access off of Harlem Avenue to these. But this one, when it came forward, the bank really wanted the frontage facing Harlem Avenue, and that's kind of what they did here. So it's got some unique challenges there where the back of the building is really one of the most visible parts of that building to people that are going to come visit it. So. From a background perspective, I'll just touch on really quick the 2019 approval on this, because that's technically what we're amending today because that was approved. There was a substantial deviation on that allowed for basically another drive-through within this planned unit development that had a limit on drive-through restaurants. They didn't really want this to have an overload of Wendy's, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Arby's, so that they were really trying to limit that and encourage some kind of either fast casual or sit-down dining type restaurant. So this came forward with the Jimmy John's in 2019, and so they were going to do a building addition that went into the canopy area and then keep kind of a covered drive-through where the canopy is now. There was some pretty substantial site changes to that one to make that work. It included one-way kind of access around the south side of the building, which is on the left side of this this image that's in front of you here. It also, and this is carried over into the plan that'll be before you today, is took out kind of a third access that's to the north side of this site. Kind of an awkward third access and a couple parking stalls that were in the rear of the building. So this is what was approved in 2019, and it included site plan and substantial deviation. But I'll note that substantial deviation to allow for basically a drive-up lane, a drive-through lane, carries over. That was basically just conditioned that they couldn't increase the use of that, the demand, the stacking demand. Since Jimmy John's was a fairly low demand and a high turnover, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts wouldn't work in that site just because there isn't enough stacking room there before you'd be out to the ring road and causing some traffic issues. So with that being noted, we allowed it. We kind of knew, okay, maybe there would be another tenant here in the future, but they would have had to submit a parking study. So the one that's going to be before you today doesn't include that substantial deviation because this really is less of a demand than even Jimmy John's was, and we'll get to that. The proposed use here, the zoning for this is B3 PD, and that's in the Brookside Marketplace shopping center, so it's surrounded by that shopping center. To the west of this, on the other side of Harlem, is also zoned B3, and this area is considered kind of our entertainment corridor with shopping, commercial, entertainment type uses really being the targeted uses we want to see in this area of town. The proposed use is again so they're looking to take this single tenant bank building and basically carve it into 2 tenant spaces, similar to the last 2019 proposal, but this will include a Chipotle with this one, and then there'll be a second tenant. It can be anything that's allowed in the B3 or allowed in this PUD, but they're marketing it kind of with a vision that there would be maybe a second food-related tenant there. So the owner has kind of relationships with some, and there's some that Chipotle kind of tend to bring that want to be next to a Chipotle. So it could be anything, but they're kind of thinking maybe that'll be another food type related tenant there. They're also proposing outdoor patios with this, which is very typical of Chipotle's. And then kind of the unique aspect of this proposal is the Chipotlane, which is kind of a pickup drive-up window. Unlike the Jimmy John's and unlike most drive-throughs, there won't be any orders actually taken on the site. So this would be kind of you've already made your order and you're just coming there to pick it up. So either do that on the website or an app. And they have a few existing of those locations in New Lenox, Lockport, Aurora, Elgin, Peru. So that it's kind of their new concept, and this was happening before COVID. And I think now with COVID, it's even kind of more of a necessity, I think, with them. But they've seen some success with that. And again, there's no order menu there that's taking your order. You're basically going up to the window saying, I'm this person, I'm here to pick up my order. And you would have already paid for it, kind of been notified it's ready for pickup. So. The site plan here, so similar to the 2019 approval, there's 3 access points, and we're having them remove that one that's kind of on that northwest corner. That's just an awkward position there if that was to remain with the drive-through lane and potential stacking being there. Just a conflict point, really, if you have 2 entrances to the same thing. People don't tend to be friendly and let somebody go in front of them, so that kind of eliminates that awkward access point. And that's really was there in the beginning, because this is kind of an odd-shaped, pie-shaped lot here. So I see why it worked for a bank, but now that you kind of add these, a pickup lane, a drive-through lane, and some kind of more traffic to this site, that gets a little more dicey. So they've closed that off. This one also adds in parking on the south side of the site, or the left side of the image you're seeing on the screen. And then the patios are also the other additions here. So where there's end islands in front of the building on the east side, they're going to be adding outdoor patios there for the 2 tenants. So Chipotle will have one, and then that kind of allows them to market that other space for a food-related tenant to have one. So our first open item is just kind of reviewing this overall site plan changes, the general traffic circulation, those proposed patios in front. And I'll say with those patios, they'll have a consistent fence design. So they haven't quite submitted that, I don't believe. But we are recommending a condition basically that those have a consistent fence design between the 2 patios, and that so each tenant isn't always changing out those, and we have a uniform look to the site. Also, condition of approval that, but like all our sites that are changing grades or adding in curbing, that this is all kind of subject to final engineering. So we can make sure stormwater works correctly, and that ADA access is maintained correctly to code. So per usual, we have the condition that it's subject to engineering here. Parking and stacking, that's obviously kind of the main concern usually when you talk about adding in any type of drive-through lane or even a pickup lane. First is, I'll go over parking. So right now there's 33 parking stalls on the site. The plan that they're proposing is going to have 50 parking stalls. So there's an increase in 17 parking stalls on this site, which is pretty significant. I think a benefit for, obviously, food-related uses are going to have a higher parking demand than the bank does. And then also, I mean, this is even more parking than what Jimmy John's had previously, so I think they've done a good job. Without that building expansion, it's given them then the room to kind of add that parking along the south side of the site. So from the zoning ordinance perspective, the minimum is 1 stall for every 3 seats in a restaurant, and then 1 stall for each employee. So parking minimums, again, I think both me and Paula you've all heard us say it's kind of an art more than a science. And quite honestly, from a planning perspective, we've overparked, the suburbs have been overparked to 10 times what they need. This shopping center overall actually was designed fairly well in that there are shared parking, cross-parking agreements over the entire shopping center. So it kind of allows there to be some, depending on what the uses change over, it allows you to make sure there's parking available somewhere in that shopping center for any uses. So it kind of as they change over, the ebb and flow of throughout the day of different peak times, they can kind of use each other's parking out there. So make sure you don't need to over park every single site, every single building. So it's really a benefit to all the sites out there. So staff, so that doesn't, it meets the code, and not only that, I think staff's fairly confident that with that overall parking supply of the shopping center, you'll be fairly covered there to cover any type of parking issue that might come up, that they can go park at the shopping center next door or something like that. So for the pickup lanes, for their Chipotle, there's 6 stacking spots there. We didn't have them do a formal parking study just because obviously with COVID, it's an atypical time. Also with the change from the Jimmy John's true drive-through to this just being a pre-order pickup lane, the food's already been ordered, paid for, and they're literally just doing a small hand out the window. Do you need any sauces, things like that? So the total time there is pretty significantly less. So we did not recommend that they do a parking study with this, just because that's an obvious kind of quick turnover situation there. With that being said, they do have 6 stacking spaces here, so there can still be some stacking involved. Obviously, people can show up at the same time and ask for their orders, or somebody might be asking for something extra, and you might have a few people stack up. So they have 6 stacking spaces, and they've stated that's fairly significant compared to some of the other locations they have, so they believe that'll work pretty well. And again, they've had these at New Lenox and Lockport are the closest to, but also Aurora, Elgin, and Peru are kind of the nearest ones around here. The landscaping side of this, so there is one waiver they're asking for from a landscaping perspective, is those end islands are basically required by our landscape code, that you kind of finish off parking stalls with landscaped end islands with a tree in there. So with them converting those to be patios now, they need to have that waiver. So with that being said, they've added landscaping, pretty significant landscaping to the west side of this site, as well as between the main drive aisle into the site and then the pickup lane. You'll have a landscaped kind of median between those two. So while they're losing landscaping kind of in the front right there, they're adding it a lot to the south and the west sides. And then to the east, to Harlem, there's a fairly substantial buffer there. So not just what you're seeing on the site plan here, there's a pretty significant buffer there on the Harlem Avenue right away. So open item 3 was to discuss the landscape waiver again for the patios and approve the landscape plan. So walkways is a good addition that we got here when we were talking about the Jimmy John's in 2019, and what they've carried over here is continuing the sidewalk of the shopping center through the site. I can't vouch for why it just kind of stops out here and doesn't really continue through, but that's obviously not really what we want to see. So with the existing sidewalk stopping at the Taco Bell site to the south of this, we're getting one more continuance of it through this site. So at least it doesn't just abruptly end at their property line, and it connects into the rest of the site here. Lighting wise, they've done some minor changes to the lighting just because those were in those end islands. So they've moved those slightly, but they're going to keep the same poles, the same fixtures, and the lighting levels are in compliance with our village codes. And I forgot to mention the second open item was just basically the review of the parking and the drive-up window there. Architecture-wise, so this is something that we kind of evaluated just with the change from a bank to what they're trying to do here. So here's the different elevations of the site. They've obviously added some windows in the drive-through pickup window to the south pickup lane. That east kind of front elevation doesn't change very much to what they have right now. So that was kind of designed, again, with some alternative use in mind. They have added a canopy to the front there that gives it a little more of a commercial entrance look to it. The west and rear elevations, this was kind of what we had some concerns about, was if there was a way to kind of dress this up. They've decided to do that a little more with the landscaping they have planted to the west of this and kind of help buffer the views of this a little bit. They've looked at the land or the architecture side of this, and there's kind of two concerns they have. Is one, changes to the architecture that are significant could kind of kick in some additional approvals that would take significant time through the association and kind of the other major tenants in the shopping center. So they want to avoid that. Additionally, there's kind of some structural elements they'd have to look at in terms of the building. If they were going to add other peaks or other elements to this, they'd have to look at the actual structure of the building and what changes they need to make there. So in the interest of those two items, they basically said we want to go forward with the building as it looks, and it's a fairly attractive building, but not wanting to make any major changes there. And then the north elevation is going to stay the way it is now with the existing windows. And here's one of the elevations for this site, the 3D rendering, and then another perspective there in the front with the patios and kind of the overall site changes. Signage-wise, they have kind of a similar sign that's out there for all the other buildings, similar to Arby's and Taco Bell and all of them, Panera. All have kind of a similar size sign here, so this complies with the PUD regulations as well as the association's requirements. They do have some directional signage that's permitted. The one that's not permitted here is the order pickup window sign that's there on the right and has the not allowed sign on it. That'll need to be revised to comply with the height and size requirements. Staff's kind of recommended doing something similar to their enter sign, and you could do just order pickup with an arrow, and I think they could have a consistent directional sign theme throughout there. So I kind of like that design. It's fairly unique, and I think they could carry that over to the order pickup window, directional sign there as well. So. They'll have to revise that to, again, meet the code. Otherwise, they'd have to go back through a formal hearing process. So we did add that as an open item and require that as a revision in the conditions as well. And so that's it for the open items. We just went through them all, so I'll give it back to you, Chairman.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. Thank you, Dan, for your presentation. At this time, I will ask if the applicant has anything to add, and if they do, just please identify yourself. Is the applicant here?
I don't know if they joined or not. It doesn't sound like they're on the line.
Okay, well,
So-
we'll just move on to the commissioners' comments. So at this time, I'll ask the commissioners for comments on any of the open items. We'll begin with Commissioner Gaskell.
No comments.
Okay. Commissioner Vick.
Just a couple things here, kind of going along with what what staff has said. You know, definitely I would say that for open item number 1 on that fence design, it does need to be a consistent design between the 2 different patio spaces. Just like, you know, like they kind of said, with different people possibly coming in and out of there, meaning tenants for the building, we don't want them to change each time. So that is definite. On open item number 2, yeah, there should be some sort of requirements in there that with changes to the, you know, if the pickup lane was to become a actual drive-through lane, then new studies would have to be done to take care of that, new analysis to be able to handle that, you know, as it should. I like the landscape design. I don't have any issues with that. A little bit of, you know, differences between what the code is and what they have designed there. I think it makes up for it with like that additional one between the pickup lane and others. I think it's a good looking site. That's definite. Over all that, it looks like they've done a good job, and hopefully, you know, this will go through and progress as need be. And yes, I definitely agree that with the pickup order sign definitely needs to be revised, and yeah, closer to that one, that enter sign or something would be a nice look, like Dan said. So that's what I've got.
Okay, excellent comments. Commissioner Aitchison.
Not at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Mandy.
Yeah, I think, you know, I don't have any issues with the open items, and I agree with Commissioner Vick. But my only comment is safety concern. If we look at the southeast corner of the building, we have striping for pedestrians, you know, from the parking to the patio entry area. I think it's a similar comment I had when we had the Jimmy John coming through. I think that corner, that entry, you know, patio area and the driveway could be a concern, safety concern for pedestrians and especially with children. I think we need to maybe push down that pedestrian striping, you know, say like 3 feet, and at the corner, the southeast corner of that building, you know, suggesting them to install, you know, fencing just to catch, you know, and anybody, you know, crossing, you know, or for, you know, crossing, you know, making sure the driver and the driver window doesn't just continue on and possibly, you know, injure somebody. You know, again, that corner, you know, doesn't catch anybody, you know.
Sure, and we talked to them a little bit.
Just that corner, just to make it, you know, make it more, you know, more secure for people could see, you know, make that driver and that pickup window see that, you know, there might be a kid or person not paying attention, you know, that, you know, they're going to start to walk across that striping. So that's all I have.
Sure, we can bring that up to them. We kind of brought it up previously in that, you know, they basically didn't have the crosswalk there or an access, and we pretty much said you could either make it a little more pedestrian friendly, and so they've added stop signs and the crosswalk and the parking there, or basically seal it up and not let somebody walk that way. So we'll discuss that with them again about maybe not having that crossing there. I think you make some good points. So.
Right, you know,
Chairman Gray.
you know, to create some type of a little barrier just so the person crossing and the person driving so they can see like there's someone there.
This is Chairman Gray. Yes, good comments, Commissioner Manny. And I'm looking at the Oculus Inc. Conceptual rendering. It looks kind of lifelike. It does show and it's one of the first slides if you keep going back. It's further back. It's the conceptual one, like right as you begin. Yeah, right there. And I'm holding the picture that's in the report. It looks like the fence goes all the way to the brick wall, which would mean that why would you have that crosswalk there, and why would you have that landscaped area having like a sidewalk? And to staff's point, when Dan mentioned maybe you drop it all together, I think so, because Commissioner Manny made a good point about kids. They're just going to run, and you do have the car coming off of that drive-through area without. It's kind of a blind spot on their left side. They should be going slow, but even then, kids can dart out. So it may be better not to tempt fate and perhaps look at it a different way, because the drawing does show that fence going all the way, and I'm not sure if that's a little doorway to part of the fence, like a gate, but it's probably better to have that all corralled where you can't access that other than from the inside, and or at least from that side. The side that's by the drive-through is blocked off to a certain point until you get to the parking lots to the north, because I think that could be an issue. I think from a safety standpoint, I do think Commissioner Manning makes a strong point on that. But that's probably something that has to be looked into. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Commissioner Manning. Do you have anything else to say?
No, that's it. You know, again, definitely, the plan looks great and everything, but I just want to make sure that we address that, possible, safety concern.
Yeah, and I would agree, maybe eliminating that's the best option, and that's what we originally recommended to them. But I think you guys make some good points. I think their intention was you have people there parking to the south. We want to get them to in front of the stores. But the likelihood that most of those are probably going to be employee kind of parking over there, I have a feeling. So, and they still have an ability to walk through the parking lot to the front doors. So, and I think you guys make some good points about the visibility to somebody walking out. So we can condition this and have them just kind of remove that walkway there and block it off with a fence.
Okay. I'll get back to the commissioners and their comments. Commissioner Engel, any comments?
None at this time.
Okay. This is Chairman Gray. Just a few comments. Some of them are just going to be echoing what Commissioner Vick said on the traffic study. If the stacking gets, into the ring road, or they change it to a drive-through, or a new tenant comes in, and it will cause for a change to have a traffic study. I agree with that in the staff report. I think it's sound advice. I don't have a problem with the architecture. I think the drawings look pretty good. I think it looks nice. I do like those outdoor patios that are on the east end, and I do agree with keeping them, having some consistency. But I also think, just from a standpoint of foresight, and this time it's a good idea to have some outdoor dining areas as a good idea, and I think it looks nice as well. So it hits the mark there. For the open item number 7, which is open item, the sign. I do agree that it should conform to the rest of the signs in the Brookside Drive. So if they can conform to that 4-foot high, 6 square foot dimension of the sign, I think that'd be good and consistent with the rest of the complex. But other than that, I think those are my comments. Yeah, those are my comments, so, and then obviously the applicant's not here.
It doesn't sound like it if
So
they haven't.
Commissioner, is there any other further discussion? If you didn't have a comment before, do you have a comment now? Just speak up at this time and identify yourself. Okay, hearing none. I will ask for a motion for a site plan approval on this item.
This is Commissioner Vick. I would like to make a motion to grant petitioner Daniel Abdo on behalf of Glacier Development Group, contract purchaser, site plan approval for the property located at 7228 West 191st Street in accordance with the plan submitted and listed herein, subject to the following conditions. Number one, if the drive-up aisle is not utilized in the future, a new site plan approval is required prior to occupancy of the space or immediately upon the decommissioning of the drive-up operations. Number two, any changes in drive-up window or parking demand from what was presented requires a new traffic study, drive-through analysis, and prior approval to ensure the on-site drive-through stacking and parking is sufficient. Number three, site plan approval is subject to the final engineering plan review and approval by the village engineer. And number four, the pickup window directional sign shall be revised to comply with the zoning code and PUD requirements.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Manning. I second that motion.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Vick, seconded by Commissioner Manning. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Engel,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. This is Chairman Gray. Motion is carried. We'll move on to item number 3. The third item on tonight's agenda is a workshop/public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant New School for Massage, Bodywork, and Healing, the tenant, approval for a special use permit for a vocational massage school at 18440 Thompson Court, Suite 10, in the ORI, Office and Restricted Industrial Zoning District. Since this is a workshop and a public hearing, we will begin with the workshop presentation by staff first. And I just want to note that I did receive confirmation of the public notice for this public hearing, and and that it will be later in tonight's meeting. So at this time, staff, can you please present your report?
Thank you, Chairman. This is Paula Walrick. Prior to making my presentation, I again want to mention that the minutes will reflect that the staff report has been distributed to the commission, the applicant, and we've posted it on our website. And therefore, with the minutes that Barb is preparing, our staff report is going to be attached and made a part of the meeting record. And just so you all know, the reason we're changing the format of that, we've realized that our minutes often become redundant of the staff report as they're written. And I think we're very proud of the staff reports. They're very detailed, and there is not really a necessity for Barb to really just regurgitate the staff reports. She does a great job of entering all the documentation and the dialogue between staff, applicant, and the commission. And so going forward, the staff report will stand on its own, and then Barb will supplement it with what happens at the meeting. So let's begin with the workshop meeting, as Chairman Gray mentioned. The subject this evening is a special use request for the new massage school, looking to occupy a tenant space at 18440 Thompson Court, which is part of the Hickory Creek PUD with the underlying zoning districts of ORI. This school is considered a vocational educational facility by our definition and requires a special use in this district. If we want to take a look at a little bit of the history, this PUD was adopted in 2006, and it was really an expansion of the uses in the area. The Thompson Court buildings, there are 4 of them on that building, on that court, all nice architecture, as you see in the slide here. Predominantly office uses, but we do have some single uses that reflect the typical ORI use. In the 18440 Thompson building where they wish to locate, it's a 2-story building. It's got 13 tenant spaces right now, 8 of them occupied with 5 vacancies. The school is located out of Chicago at the moment. It was founded in 2002 by Emmanuel Bistas. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He is a licensed massage therapist, and he's looking to expand his campus and to address a market need in this area. He was very happy to find this site and that it's a well-kept, beautiful building, and he's looking to rent a space that's 2,461 square feet. He can accommodate up to 18 students per his licensing requirements with the staff that he has, but his experience, the classroom sizes have ranged just between 6 and 10 students. He will have 2 staff members at the facility, an administrative staff person, and then an instructor. Hours haven't been finalized. It will be kind of dependent on the market. However, he expects most of the classes to be held in the evening, although in Chicago they do have weekday morning classes and they do have weekend classes. In Chicago, they do have a clinic that's part of the training program so that the students can practice their craft, but that will not be part of this location, and further, this site and this zoning does not allow for it. The zoning of the area, as I mentioned, is a vacancy PUD, underlying zoning district of ORI. In this particular PUD on this cul-de-sac, we have shaft windows. That's one use, single-use building. We also have Eat Enterprises. It's a vended meal contractor. And then right at the on the east side, as you enter the cul-de-sac, there's a multi-tenant building that includes a youth gymnastics use. If you look at the next slide there, you'll see at the bottom, it is surrounded by ORI uses completely. To the north, across 183rd is the Tinley Park Police Building, and then kind of in the northeast direction is the former Tinley Park Mental Health Facility. If you were to go further past 80th Avenue, there is some residential R3 district in that area. So the special use, we move on to the special use description. It does meet the definition of a vocational educational facility, and therefore that is takes a special use in this district. And as with all special uses, we do look at the standards, and I kind of itemize those in your staff report. We look at the site plan, and as I noted, it is on a cul-de-sac with adjacent uses that are similar to the use in this building. Parking is probably the area, and as Dan mentioned, it is not a perfect science. I do know that in the past we had some problems with parking in this area, but it has been since rectified with some cross-parking agreements. On this property, there is 130 parking spaces allotted to this building. And if you look at the table there, you'll see that of those, certainly if everyone is maxed out on their parking allotment, they're going to have a deficit of 7 parking spaces. But as I mentioned, and I'm speaking with the applicant, he expects his class size not to exceed 10. And then in speaking with the manager of the property, she mentioned that of the users that are there. PSA only uses 10 spaces, and Clear Result actually doesn't even come into the office, and that's not just because of COVID. That's normally so they're not occupying those 19 spaces that have been allotted to them. I think the thing that's important to think about in these multi-tenant buildings, the benefit you have is that they're not condoed out where they're each working in their own self-interest. There is some self-monitoring going on because the landlord is not going to work against himself and lease a space that's going to be occupying more spaces than they're allotted and be at the detriment of his other tenants. So there's a real, good, I guess, symbiotic relationship between what parking occurs on the site and the tenancy that they have. They do have some vacancies, so obviously it's hard to do a parking study right now. I think this chart gives you some clear indication of what the parking appropriation has been by the landlord. The next issue is just the hours of operation. And speaking with Mr. Bistock, he mentioned that he primarily thinks his classes will be from 5:30 to 9:30 at night. There's only one other user in that building that has night hours, and they shut down at 7 p.m. Therefore, I don't think there's going to really be much of a conflict between the two uses. The standards for special use were there for your consideration, and as we move on to the public hearing, I can go over those for you. Thank you. That concludes my report, Chairman. Gray.
Okay. Thanks for your this is Chairman Gray. Thanks for your presentation, Paula. Are there any comments from the petitioner?
I'm the property manager.
Sure. What is your name?
Mary Lynn Monaco.
Okay, Mary Lynn. If you have any comments at this time for the workshop, let us know.
I think I'm good. I think Paula got everything right on the head.
Okay.
So I'm
Excellent.
good.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. So, Commission, at this time, I'll ask if you have any comments or discussion on the workshop portion of this meeting. And I'll begin with Commissioner Aitchison. Any comments?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Manning.
No comments.
Commissioner Engel.
It looks good to me. That's all.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell.
No comments.
Commissioner Vick.
No comments.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray, my comment, and Mary Lynn, you probably can answer this, is strictly classes. Will there be people that come into classes to be worked on by the class? Or is that the difference between it being vocational?
Emmanuel, is that you?
Yes, I'm here, yes.
Yes.
May I answer that? It's going to be, this is Emmanuel Bistam, the owner of the school. It will be strictly the students and the students practice on each other. We do not allow people from the outside for many reasons, but primarily for the safety. Massage therapists, you're in a very vulnerable position when you are on the table and you exchange massages. So no outsiders come in, and even during the admissions tours, we do not allow people from the outside to go into the classroom.
Okay, that's good, Emmanuel. This is Chairman Gray. Yes, because that's why I was trying to figure out, other than the teachers and the students, if there was going to be any other potential for increasing that parking lot capacity. But obviously, the numbers that were provided in the staff report seem pretty reasonable. And that was my big comment. I was just curious, so I appreciate your information on it.
Thank you.
So thank you. Mr. Chairman Gray, we will now proceed to the public hearing portion. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
This is Commissioner Gaskell. I make the motion.
Commissioner Vick. I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Vick. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in to speak after the staff's presentation. Staff, please proceed with your presentation at this time.
I have nothing further to add from what I just presented, Chairman.
Okay. And this is Chairman Gray. At this time, if the applicant has anything to add, then I'll have to swear you in. So, Emmanuel, Mary Lynn, do you have any further things to add at this time?
I am okay.
Yeah, and I don't have anything else unless you have specific questions. I'm very excited about this opportunity, and I appreciate the chance to even be here and speak with you. Thank you.
Okay. And if one of the commissioners do have a question for either of you, I'll then swear you in.
Thank you.
Okay. This is Chairman Gray. Commission, do you have any further comments or discussion on this time? At this time, I will begin with Commissioner Manny.
There's no comment. I just want to say that, I'm excited for your future business here in Tinley Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Vick.
I have no comments at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Engel.
None at this time.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Aitchison.
No, not at this time.
And I have no further comments either. This is Chairman Gray. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item? Hearing none, I will move on. If there are no further questions or discussion, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
This is Commissioner Aitchison, so moved.
This is Commissioner Engel. I second that motion.
Okay, motion, this is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Aitchison, seconded by Commissioner Engel. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, motion is carried. This is Chairman Gray. Staff, will you please present the standards for special use?
Thank you, Chairman Gray. The standards for special use are similar to how we always look at them for special use. We wanted to make sure that we're not negatively impacting adjacent users or potentially future uses. This is a developed area. There will be no more construction on this site. The user is requesting to go into a occupied building that is similar in nature to some of the uses that are there already. There is minimal traffic expected, and we discussed the parking and the hours of operation, that we feel there'll be no negative impact on adjacent uses or any future uses in that building. That concludes my standards.
Okay, thank you, Paula. This is Chairman Gray. Now, may I have a motion regarding the special use?
This is Commissioner Engel. I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to petitioner Mary Lynn Monaco, project manager, special use on behalf of Steve Vernon, SA Property LLC, for a vocational educational facility to be located at 18440 Thompson Court, Suite 10, in the Hickory Creek Land Unit Development, and adopt findings of fact as proposed by village staff in the staff report.
This is Commissioner Aitchison. I second that motion.
This is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Engel, seconded by Commissioner Aitchison. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Manny,
Yes.
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Motion is carried. This is Chairman Gray. This item will go to the village board on Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. So Mary Lynn and Emmanuel, take note of that date, October 6th, 2020, and please get with staff on how you can attend.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and it looks like a great school.
We're very excited. Thank you.
Moving on to the good of the order, this is Chairman Gray. Staff, do you have any comments for the good of the order at this time?
I'll take this.
Paula, I just wanted to mention that I had reviewed a couple of projects that you've all been involved in. The Pritzker development is already submitted for building permits, and so I reviewed those today, so we're going to see that move forward pretty quickly. And Magnuson, believe it or not, some of you, probably not everybody, remembers this development, but the Magnuson residential development out on 191st is in for permits, and so I was reviewing that today as well. So despite COVID, we continue to see good development in the village of Tinley Park.
Yeah, and I'll note, right now is
I think Dan had something.
sorry, the APA Illinois conference, state conference is going on right now. So it's all being done virtually, and both me and Kimberly are attending it. So there's been some interesting items on reinventing suburban corridors, changes with COVID and outdoor dining and legal considerations, sustainability and landscape design, crafting economic development incentives. So there's a lot of good information I think we're getting out of there. And if any commissioners are ever interested, they do commissioner training during this, and they do it annually. So if anyone's interested for next year, essentially, make sure to let us know so we can look into that. But there's a lot of good information. I kind of like the virtual setup because I get to just, pause it if I need to. But that's it.
Okay, thanks, Dan. This is Chairman Gray. We'll move on to receiving comments from the public. Staff, are there any public comments submitted?
Nope, no
earlier
comments.
today, or members of the public present today?
No comments and nobody here.
Okay. Moving on to adjournment. If there is nothing further, I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Commissioner Gaskell, I make the motion.
I hear a second.
This is Commissioner Manny. I second the motion.
This is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Manny. I will take a voice vote. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carried. This meeting is adjourned at 8:53 p.m.